I am the true young master. Qin Zhaoye. 7 years after returning home, I was bound to a family regret system. The system said that the fake young master had stolen my life, and my family was biased and cold. I had to make them regret it to the core with blood and tears. It issued its first task, telling me to jump off a building. I glanced at the dining table. My dad peeled shrimp for me. My mom ladled soup for me, and my sister put the last piece of sweet and sour ribs into my bowl. My brother calmly reminded me, eat first before making a scene. Jumping on an empty stomach might give you a cramp. I opened the task details. Fall from a height, making your indifferent family realize the pain of losing you. I understand. A height. The windowsill on the first floor of my house is also a high place. So, with tears in my eyes, I accused my whole family, stepped onto the windowsill, and made a tragic leap. Half a second after landing, I heard my mom shout from inside the house, "Done jumping. Come back and have some soup." I had just stuffed a shrimp into my mouth when a line of blood-red characters suddenly exploded before my eyes. Target detected. The tragic revenge arc of the real and fake young masters has begun. I pricked my tongue on a shrimp tail. What the hell? The line of text trembled and shifted into a more solemn font. Host Qin Zhaoye, the true young master of the Qin family, who was left behind, spent his childhood in an orphanage. After returning home, he was ignored by the whole family, had his familial bonds stolen by the fake young master, and had his dignity crushed by the cold stares of the wealthy. I lowered my head and glanced at the bowl. In my bowl were piled 3 peeled shrimp, 2 pieces of ribs, a spoonful of crab roe tofu, and the belly of the steamed fish that my dad had just picked for me with the serving chopsticks. My dad, Qin Banyan, sat at the head of the table, his sleeves rolled up to his forearms, still holding a shrimp in his hand, his brows furrowed tighter than if his company were going bankrupt. "Zhaoye, open your mouth," I said. "Dad, I'm 21. My dad said, "Even at 21, a shrimp tail can still prick your tongue." My mom, Wenxiai, slid the soup bowl to my hand, her fingertips touching the rim to test the temperature. "Drink your soup first. Don't rush to be clever." My sister Qinji picked up the last piece of sweet and sour spare ribs and put it into my bowl without even blinking. "Whoever dares to snatch it from you, just bite them." My brother Qin Yinchuan sat across from me, pushed up his glasses, and said in a flat tone, "Take a good look before you bite. Don't bite your own people." I swallowed the shrimp, and the line of text in front of me fell silent for 3 seconds. Then, as if cornered, it popped out another line. "Their hypocritical concern is just a cover-up for the wealthy family. True favoritism will always belong to the fake young master." Qi Fengchuan. I looked up and glanced around. The chandelier in the restaurant was dazzlingly bright, steam rising from the table, scallions floating in the fish soup, the air thick with the aroma of food. My whole family was staring at me, because I had just frowned at the empty air and poked the space in front of me with my chopsticks. Qin Ji squinted. "What did you see this time?" I cleared my throat. "Fate." Qin Yinchuan set down his cup. "Is it cultivation this time, or Western magic?" Before I could answer, more words appeared before my eyes. Newbie mission released. Mission content. The neglected true young master finally breaks down, leaping from the Qin family's high-rise, using his shattered body to awaken his family's regret. Mission requirement. Complete 1 act of jumping from a building. Reward. 10 revenge points. Punishment for failure. Electric shock for 10 seconds. I paused, my chopsticks freezing midair. Electric shock? Are you insane? The system replied coldly. A tragic protagonist must endure suffering. You said jumping off a building. Yes. You didn't say which floor. The system paused for a moment. I turned my head to look at the floor-to-ceiling window next to the restaurant. The dining room on the first floor of my old house had a window overlooking the neatly trimmed lawn. The windowsill was about 40 centimeters above the ground. Jumping off would at most get your shoes muddy. The system seemed to sense something, its blood-red text flickering wildly. The spirit of the task is a desperate fall. What you wrote was jumping off a building. The host must not misinterpret the task. Where's the contract? The terms? The supplementary agreement? The system fell silent. I slammed my chopsticks down, squeezed my eyes, and forced out 2 tears brought on by the sting of wasabi. Qin Ji immediately sat up straight. Qin Yinchuan reached for his phone, presumably ready to take a photo as evidence. My dad stopped peeling the shrimp, his expression shifting from seriousness to alertness. My mom looked at me, took a gentle breath, and said, "Zhaoye, you go first. How we need to cooperate this time." I raised my hand to cover my chest, my voice trembling with dramatic twists and turns. "You cold-hearted people of the wealthy families have finally pushed me to this point." Qin Yinchuan stared at the spare ribs in my bowl. "Cold-hearted enough to pile half the table with dishes for you?" I choked for a moment, then continued my act. "These dishes are sugar-coated bullets, false affection, and weapons used by capitalists to corrupt my soul." My dad looked down at the shrimp in his hand. "So, should I still eat this one?" I looked at him with a heavy heart. "Eat it." I took the shrimp and stuffed it into my mouth, only continuing to clutch my chest after chewing and swallowing. The system's notifications were flashing wildly before my eyes. "Host, please maintain a tragic and heroic demeanor." "Shut up." I have shrimp in my mouth. I stood up, the chair legs scraping across the floor with a harsh screech. The whole family's gaze followed me. Step by step, I walked to the window, raised my hand, and pushed it open. The night wind rushed in, carrying the scent of grass and soil, making the steam from the hot soup on the table waver to one side. I stepped onto the windowsill. My mom looked at me for 2 seconds and said, "Your shoelace is untied." I looked down and saw that it was indeed untied. The tragic atmosphere shattered into pieces. Qin Ji stood up and was about to come over. I raised my hand to stop her. "Don't come over. I have made up my mind to die." Qin Ji sat back down and picked up her phone. "Fine. Then, before you die, tie your shoelaces so you don't actually fall and make it real." I had no choice but to crouch on the windowsill and tie my shoelaces. The system was as silent as if it had crashed. I finished tying my shoelaces, stood up again, and opened my arms to the whole family. "From now on, you will never see the true young master you have broken-hearted again." My brother looked at the lawn beneath my feet. "From a high perspective, we might still see the top of your head." I almost burst out laughing and quickly bit my tongue. "Hold it together. Qin Zhaoye, you're a professional." I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and jumped off the windowsill. The soles of my shoes sank into the grass, the soft mud giving way beneath me, and I didn't even bend my knees. The system let out a beep. Task complete. Revenge points +10. I stood outside the window, locking eyes with the family inside through the glass. My dad is still holding the shrimp. My mom is holding a bowl of soup. My sister is holding up her phone. My brother has a blank expression. 3 seconds later, my mom says, "Are you done jumping?" I nodded. She pushed the soup slightly toward my seat. "Come back and drink the soup, or it'll get cold." When I climbed back into the dining room through the window, the system's handwriting was noticeably faint. Task judgment anomaly. I sat back in my chair, picked up the soup and took a sip. It was so fresh that even the root of my tongue relaxed. What's abnormal? There's jumping. There are buildings. There's falling, too. I even brought accusatory lines. The system held back for a long time. Insufficient emotional intensity. I'm already in tears. That was the wasabi that made you choke. Are you checking credentials? The system has gone silent again. Qin Ji turned her phone to show me. In the video, I stood on the windowsill, the hem of my clothes fluttering in the wind, my expression heavy with sorrow. The lines became more absurd with each sentence. And when I finally jumped, I instinctively protected my pants pocket. Qin Ji laughed so hard her shoulders shook. "Do you know how much you look like someone jumping a turnstile to skip the fare when you jump down?" I pressed the phone off. Art does not allow replays. Qin Yinchuan said, "Art can be edited." I've sent it to the family group. My dad immediately picked up his phone. My mom also picked up her phone. The next second, the family group chat exploded. Uncle, Zhaoye is at it again. Uncle, what's the theme this time? Sister-in-law. Judging by the post, it looks like a power struggle among the wealthy. Grandpa, who upset my grandson? Grandma, don't let him jump too much. His legs will ache at night. I held the soup bowl and the blood-red text of the system before my eyes began to tremble. Warning, host must not trivialize the revenge mission. Then don't send me entertainment material. The system said coldly. The second mission is about to be released. I almost spat out my soup. Doesn't your system have a cooldown? Suffering does not wait. At least let me finish my meal before the suffering begins. The system ignores me. Task content. Only true pain can pierce through numb familial bonds. Please have the host cut their wrist in public, letting the family see you wounded for love. Task requirement. Red marks appear on the wrist, and the family is accused of favoritism. Reward. 20 revenge points. Failure penalty. Electric shock for 20 seconds. I stare at the phrase red scar 3 times, only talking about the red scar, not saying it has to bleed. System. Oh. I put down my bowl and looked up at Qin. Sis, can I borrow your lipstick? Qin asked warily. What are you going to do? I reached out my right wrist in pain. I want to show you my shattered soul. Qin stared at me for 2 seconds, then lowered her head to take a lipstick out of her bag. She handed it halfway before pulling it back. Wait, the shade is wrong. This one has orange undertones. It looks fake for drawing wounds. The system suddenly perked up. Your family has started refusing your requests for help. They are indeed cold-hearted. Before I could say anything, Qin had already pulled another one out of her bag. Use this. Dark red. Realistic. System. Oh. I took the lipstick and drew a crooked red line on my wrist. Qin Yinchuan looked for 2 seconds and frowned. Cutting your wrist is not done this way. I was shocked. Bro, you have such a wide range of knowledge. He said, common sense. My mom handed me the tissue. Blur the edges a bit. Otherwise it'll look like it was marked with a red pen. My dad put down his phone and said seriously, it's too short, not tragic enough. I watched the family gathered around the dining table, engaging in an academic discussion about the red string on my wrist, while the system remained as silent as if it had been stuffed into a refrigerator. Coughed, raised my wrist, and got back into character. This is the wound I was stabbed with by favoritism. Qin raised her hand. Whose favoritism? I froze. According to the script, I was supposed to favor the fake young master, Qi Fengchuan. But Qi Fengchuan left the year I was recognized by the Qin family. I was 14 then, and he was 19. He wasn't driven away. He applied to an overseas school on his own, casually took a startup fund, and later built a business abroad. In 7 years, he barely came back. Every year on his birthday, he never lacked gifts. They were so expensive that I suspected he was laundering money. My impression of him remains that of a young man in a white shirt, standing at the entrance of the old house, holding a suitcase in his hand, bending down to pat my head. He said, "From now on, this is your home. Don't be afraid." I had just returned from the orphanage, my fingers clutching the hem of my clothes, my eyes daring only to stare at the carpet. He slipped a fruit candy into my palm. It's sweet. I blinked, holding that candy until it melted in my hand, unable to bring myself to eat it. A system notification suddenly popped up before my eyes. Please, host, accuse the fake young master of stealing love. I raised my wrist and tried my best to force out a sorrowful tone. You all favor Qi Fengchuan. The restaurant fell silent for a moment. Qin Yinchuan slowly lifted his eyes. He hasn't had New Year's Eve dinner at home for 7 years. Qin added fuel to the fire. His room was turned into a game room by you. My mom said his piano room was filled with 3 cabinets of figurines by you. My father mused. His garage was also taken over by you for your go-kart. I raised my wrist. My momentum halved. That was also a kind of favoritism, favoring me by making room for me. Qin Zhaoye burst out laughing. The system emitted a sharp alert. Task emotional deviation. I immediately slammed the table, leaving a lipstick stain on the tablecloth. In short, I am in pain. I am full of hatred, and this shattered heart of mine has been torn to pieces by you. My mom stared at the lipstick stain on the tablecloth, her eyelid twitching. Qin Zhaoye. A chill ran down my spine. My mom rarely calls me by my full name. She picked up a wet wipe and pointed at the tablecloth. You can act, but don't ruin my new tablecloth. I immediately grabbed a tissue and wiped the table. The system let out a ding. Task complete. I sneered inwardly as I applied my lipstick. See, true suffering is soiling Mom's tablecloth. The system has been upgraded. It no longer believes I will carry out tasks seriously. By the time the third task was issued, the font had turned a dark red, exuding the resentment of someone who hasn't slept in 3 days of overtime. Task content. The fake young master returns. The real young master is abandoned by the whole family, standing alone in the rain as they welcome another son. Task requirement. When the fake young master enters the door, the host must stand outside in the rain for 3 minutes and deliver a line of resentment. Reward. 30 revenge points. Failure penalty. 30 seconds of electric shock. I was lying on the sofa eating grapes, and after reading the task, I almost swallowed the grape skin. Qi Fengchuan is coming back. The system let out a cold laugh. The gears of fate have already begun to turn. By the next second, the butler Uncle Zhou walked into the living room. Young Master Fengchuan's car has arrived at the foot of the mountain. The old master wants everyone to go to the entrance to receive him. I sat up abruptly. The system's blood-red text floated with a smug air. See, proof of favoritism. I looked down at my pajamas, then glanced out the window. The sky has indeed turned overcast, raindrops sliding down the glass, making the osmanthus leaves in the yard glisten. The whole family came out from different directions. My dad was wearing a casual sweater. My mom had a shawl draped over her shoulders. Qin Zhaoye was in slippers, and Qin Yinchuan still held an unfinished document in his hand. Very ceremonious. As ceremonious as everyone going downstairs together to pick up packages. When my mom saw me walking barefoot on the floor, she immediately frowned and said, "Put on your socks." I said, "Mom, I'm going outside to get caught in the rain." She paused and asked, "Why?" I covered my chest and lowered my voice. Because I was abandoned by fate. Qin Zhaoye came down the stairs, her eyes lighting up at the words. A new storyline. I nodded. The fake young master returns. The real young master breaks down in the rainy night. Qin Yinchuan glanced out the window. The rain is too light. The breakdown effect is mediocre. My father pondered. The garden sprinklers can be turned on. System. I immediately gave a thumbs up. Dad, professional. My mom glanced at me, then at the rain outside the door, turned around and instructed Uncle Zhou. Get a thick towel and brew some ginger tea. The system probably wanted to curse, but it didn't have a mouth. I walked out to the porch and stood at the bottom of the stone steps. Raindrops fell on my hair, the chill creeping down my neck. The 3-minute countdown floated before my eyes. I had just started to get into the mood when a buzzing sound came from behind me. The garden sprinklers had turned on. The column of water swept in from the side, hitting me precisely. Me. Qin Zhaoye bent over laughing in the doorway. Now that's rainy enough. Qin Yinchuan held up his phone. Stand a bit to the side. The background is a bit messy. I wiped the water from my face and looked painfully toward the end of the mountain path. A black sedan cut through the rain, its headlights slicing through the wet night, and stopped in front of the old mansion. The car door opened. The man got out, holding a black umbrella. He was much taller than I remembered. His shoulders squared and straight beneath his suit jacket. Rainwater dripped along the edge of his umbrella, splattering onto the bluestone slabs. He looked up at me, caught between the sprinklers and the drizzle. My pajamas clung to my skin, with a smudge of lipstick still on my wrist. I looked like I had just escaped from a mental hospital, only to be drenched again by the property management. Chief Fengchuan paused mid-step. The system was buzzing with excitement. Say the lines. Resentment. Accusation. I took a deep breath, raised my hand, and pointed at Chief Fengchuan. You're finally back. Chief Fengchuan looked at me, the umbrella handle tightening between his fingers. I made my voice tremble. Did you come back just to see me being abandoned by this family? In the hallway, Qin Zhaoye whispered. Good lines. Qin Yinchuan said. It's just that the pajama buttons are fastened wrong, weakening the aura. My mom held a towel, her face full of the struggle between wanting to rush down and fearing she'd interrupt my performance. My dad, on the other hand, seriously directed Uncle Zhou. Aim the spray a bit to the left. Don't choke him. Chief Fengchuan's gaze swept between me and the whole family. He shouldn't be able to see the system. So in his eyes, I'm just his younger brother he hasn't seen in 7 years. Standing at the door in the heavy rain, my face drenched, pointing at him and reciting a tragic monologue about the wealthy family, while the whole family comments on the scene beside us. He was silent for a few seconds, then closed his umbrella and walked closer. The black umbrella covered my head, blocking half of the spraying rain. I looked up at him. He lowered his eyes, his voice deeper than the rainy night. Qin Zhaoye. My heart tightened. Here comes the CEO's interrogation. He said, You're wearing your slippers the wrong way. I looked down. Left foot little yellow duck. Right foot little dinosaur. How dare you? The system let out a crackle of static. I wiped the water off my face and forced myself to say, This is called a twist of fate. Chief Fengchuan looked at me for 2 seconds, the corner of his mouth twitching almost imperceptibly. So fast that it was like a raindrop hitting the water, its ripples vanishing before they could spread. But I saw it. He tilted the umbrella a little toward me. Get inside first. The system let out a ding. Task complete. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Chief Fengchuan suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. His thumb brushed over the lipstick mark and paused. What is this? Before I could answer, Qin Zhaoye enthusiastically explained from the doorway. The wrist-cutting scene from the last episode. Chief Fengchuan looked up. My throat went dry under his gaze. He asked, There's a series? Qin Yinchuan calmly added, It's already the 3rd episode. The first meal after Chief Fengchuan returned home was excruciating for me. Not because he put pressure on me, but because the system couldn't sit still. Detected. The fake young master has returned to his position. Main storyline conflict initiated. The host must seize the family's attention, or be consumed by the plot. I lowered my head and shoveled rice into my mouth. Have you ever considered that I don't usually need to fight for it? They look at me anyway. The system sneered. True favoritism reveals itself in comparison. I looked up. On the other side of the dining table, Chief Fengchuan sat upright, his suit jacket draped over the back of the chair, his shirt cuffs perfectly neat. My dad asked him about the company's recent situation. He said, the overseas line is wrapping up, and a new domestic project will launch next month. My brother chimed in. I've seen that merger case of yours. The risk lies in the supply chain. They started talking business. One term after another came flying out, making my ears grow drowsy. My mother served soup to Chief Fengchuan. The system immediately vibrated. See? Mother gave the first bowl of soup to the fake young master. I looked at the bowl of soup that had been served beside me long ago, with a little bare heat-proof pad still attached to its rim. Is it possible that this bowl was served to me 10 minutes ago by her? The system ignores it. Task released. Task content. At the family banquet, the true heir is neglected. You must vent your grievances by smashing the bowl, letting everyone see your breakdown. Task. Break a bowl. Reward. 40 revenge points. Penalty. 40 seconds of electric shock. I stare at my bowl. This is a handmade porcelain bowl my mom bought at an auction last year. I heard it's part of a set of 6. So expensive that my college classmates would call me a capitalist for 3 days straight. If I break it, My mom would shatter first. I shifted my gaze and saw a slow feeder pet bowl on the sideboard. That was the old bowl of my golden retriever. Though it was made of plastic, with a cracked corner, and was originally meant to be thrown away. The system warned cautiously. The host must smash a bowl during the family banquet. A plastic bowl is still a bowl. Shattered. Cracks also count as a broken state. System. Oh. I stood up. The whole table stopped. Shi Fengshuan also looked at me. I walked over to the sideboard, picked up the old dog bowl, returned to the dining table, and took a deep breath. The chopsticks in Qin Zhaoye's hand froze midair. Why are you taking Da Fu's bowl? My eyes reddened. Because in this house, even the dog has a bowl, and all I have left is my dignity. Qin Yinshuan glanced at the porcelain bowl beside me. Yours is 180 times more expensive than Da Fu's. I ignored him and raised the dog bowl. The system keeps spamming reminders. Smash. Smash hard. I slammed the bowl onto the ground. Smack. The plastic bowl bounced up and rolled to Qi Fengshuan's feet. It didn't break. The scene froze. Da Fu poked his head out from the doorway, picked up his old bowl, and looked at me in confusion. I stared at the dog. The system fell silent along with me. Qin Zhaoye was the first to burst out laughing so hard she slapped the table. My dad lowered his head and coughed, his shoulders shaking. My mother pressed her forehead with her hand. Zhaoye, Da Fu is more into the role than you are. Qi Fengshuan bent down and picked up the bowl. His fingers were long and slender, holding that old plastic bowl, a scene so absurd that I wanted to crawl into a hole. He handed the bowl to me, his tone steady as ever. Do you need my help? I was stunned. Help with what? He glanced at the air where the system task was invisible, then looked back at me. Smash it. My heart skipped a beat. He doesn't know about the system, but he knows I'm putting on an act. I took the dog bowl back and handed it to him. Then go easy on me, Da Fu was watching. Qi Fengshuan lowered his eyes, suppressing a smile at the corners of his mouth. He picked up the table knife and tapped the crack of the old bowl with the handle. Crack. The plastic crack widened, and a small piece fell off. The system pinged. Task complete. Da Fu let out a bark. I quickly crouched down and patted the dog's head. It's not aimed at you. Fate is aimed at me. Da Fu licked my face all over with saliva before I could stand up. Qi Fengshuan also crouched down. He handed me a tissue, his fingertips very close to my face. I reached out to take it, my fingers brushing against his. A very brief moment. His fingertips were cold, yet my palm felt as if it had been scalded, and I jerked it back abruptly. Qi Fengshuan glanced at me. I immediately turned to Da Fu and said, What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a tragic romance of the wealthy elite before? Da Fu wagged his tail. Qi Fengshuan let out a low chuckle. A shiver ran down my spine. It wasn't fear. That laugh was too light, brushing past the ear like someone tickling it with a feather. The system untimely popped up a line of text. Warning. The host's interaction with the fake young master deviates from the hatred route. I cursed it in my mind. Shut up. You don't know a damn thing. On the third day of Qi Fengshuan moving back, the system finally learned to be a little smarter. It stopped issuing tasks that harm the body and switched to mental humiliation instead. Task content. The fake young master shines brilliantly, while the real young master is ignored. Please have the host be forced to give up their seat during a family meeting and endure humiliation while standing in the corner. Task requirement. Leave the main seat and stand for 5 minutes. Reward. 50 revenge points. I stared at the task, lost in thought. The Qin family did have a small family meeting today. My dad asked me to attend because the family plans to increase investment in the cultural company under my name. In simple terms, they were asking how much money I needed to shoot the silly short dramas I like. A circle of people sat in the meeting room. Grandma and Grandpa arrived, along with Uncle, second uncle, and Aunt. Qi Fengshuan sat to my left, flipping through project documents. I sat near the middle of the long table. The chair so soft it made me want to sleep. The system urged me on. Leave the seat of honor. I glanced around. The seat of honor belonged to my father. If I were to give up my seat for Qi Fengchuan, it would make me look utterly ridiculous. I thought for a moment, stood up, and walked to the corner with the documents in my arms. Everyone's eyes instantly turned toward me. My father stopped. Zhaoye? I sniffled and leaned against the wall. It's fine. I'm used to it. Anyway, in this family, I'll never have a place. The teacup in Grandpa's hand trembled. Grandma immediately frowned. Who says you don't have a place? I whispered. Fate. Qin Zhaoye, who was originally sitting in the audience, immediately raised her phone upon hearing this. My uncle glanced at me, then at Qi Fengchuan, and lowered his voice to ask my father, "What's this kid's angle today?" My father said in a deep voice, "Suffering in the conference room." Qin Yinchuan opened his notebook and said, "It should be over in 5 minutes." Qi Fengchuan leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on me. Without a smile, he stared too intently, and I almost couldn't stand steady. The system's countdown began. To heighten the sense of humiliation, I clutched the documents to my chest, lowered my head, and stared at the carpet. The air conditioning in the conference room blew in from the side, the edges of the paper brushing against my wrist. Just as I was about to say, "Go on, don't mind me," this forgotten speck of dust, Grandma suddenly stood up. She leaned on her cane and walked over to me. Startled, I immediately straightened up. "Grandma?" Grandma raised her hand and touched my hair. "Who told you to stand in the corner?" I blinked. "I did," she said. "Then go back on your own." I lowered my voice. "I still have 3 minutes left." Grandma stared at me for 2 seconds, then turned to Uncle Zhou and said, "Bring a chair over." I grew anxious. "Grandma, no need. I can handle it." Grandma said, "You may be able to handle it, but I don't like the look of it." Soon, Uncle Zhou brought a chair and placed it in the corner. I looked at the chair, then at the system countdown. The task requires standing for 5 minutes. I couldn't sit down. Grandma saw that I wasn't sitting down, and her eyes narrowed. A chill ran down my spine. At that moment, Qi Fengchuan spoke up. "Grandma, he's finishing his performance." Everyone in the room turned to look at him. He closed the file, stood up, and walked over to stand beside me. I froze. "What are you doing?" Qi Fengchuan said in a low voice. "Playing along." He stood upright, his shirt buttoned all the way to the top, his shoulder almost touching mine. I caught the faint scent of cedar on him, carried over by the air conditioning, brushing past the tip of my nose. The awkwardness inside me suddenly became unruly, like a soda that had been shaken, bubbles all crashing against my chest. Qin Zhi whispered, "Well." Qin Yinchuan looked up. The plot just escalated. The system frantically warns. The fake young master must not participate in the plot where the real young master suffers. He did it willingly. This does not conform to the logic of a tragic novel. Our family no longer meets the requirements. 5 minutes later, the system chimed. Task completed. I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to return to my seat when Qi Fengchuan suddenly lowered his head and spoke in a voice meant only for me. "Have you always been like this?" I was taken aback. "Like what?" "Suddenly putting yourself in a very miserable position." I wanted to say it was just a game, but his gaze was too heavy, as if he truly wanted to find an answer on my face. I shifted the file to my other hand and gave a faint smile. "No. At most I used to pretend I was a lost prince and demand my dad buy me a castle." Qi Fengchuan looked at me. I added, "It failed. He only bought me a Lego castle." The tension in Qi Fengchuan's eyes eased. He said softly, "That's not so bad." I didn't respond verbally, but my fingers tightened on the edge of the document. The system listed Qi Fengchuan as a key interference source. It spent the entire night spamming update logs in front of me. Plot correction. The fake young master is abnormal. The host must provoke the fake young master's malice, forcing him back to his predetermined role as the villain. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, so angry that I rolled over. "He's a perfectly fine CO. Did he provoke you or offend you? The fake young master is naturally opposed to the real young master. Even Dafu wouldn't believe that in our family. The system coldly issued a task. Task content. The real young master eavesdrops on the fake young master's phone call. Discovers he is secretly plotting to seize the Qin family's assets, and confronts him heartbroken. Task. Eavesdrop on Qi Fengchuan's phone call and confront him publicly. Reward. 60 revenge points. Failure penalty. 60 seconds of electric shock. I sat up and ran my fingers through my hair. Eavesdropping is not very polite. But if the system tasks aren't completed, there's an electric shock. I thought for 3 seconds and decided to exploit a loophole. It said to eavesdrop on the call, but it didn't say Qi Fengchuan could know. When I knocked on Qi Fengchuan's study door, he was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window on the phone. Outside, the night pressed down on the garden lights, and the glass reflected his profile, his nose and jawline as sharp as a blade. He turned to look at me. I'm Mao. I'm here to eavesdrop. Qi Fengchuan. He didn't know what was said on the other end of the line, so he said to them, "Hold on a moment." Then he covered the receiver and asked me, "Do I need to notify the person being eavesdropped on?" I nodded seriously and said, "I'm a polite person." He looked at me, a faint smile slowly rising in his eyes. Then listen. He even put it on speaker. The assistant's voice came through the phone. "Mr. Qi, the cooperation terms from the Qin family have been sent over. Are you sure you want to give up 2 percentage points of profit?" The system instantly became excited. Seize the property. Interests. Conspiracy. Qi Fengchuan looked at me and said, "I'm sure." The assistant hesitated. "This isn't a good deal for you." Qi Fengchuan said, "The Qin family is not an outsider." I stood still. The prepared accusation stuck in my throat. The system grew anxious. Confront him. I coughed. Qi Fengchuan. He hung up the phone and looked at me. I raised my hand to point at him, trying my best to look fierce. "Are you secretly planning to take away the Qin families?" My mind raced. The property definitely wouldn't work. He had just made concessions. Taking away the dinner conversation rights from the Qin family? Qi Fengchuan raised an eyebrow. I grew more fluent as I spoke. "Ever since you came back, the dinner table topics have all been about mergers, supply chains, and risk models. As the family banquet atmosphere booster, I've been severely suppressed. System. Oh." I slammed the table, and a dull thud echoed from the study desk. "Tell me, are you trying to turn the Qin family into a joyless business seminar?" Qi Fengchuan looked down at my reddened palm. "Does your hand hurt?" My momentum faded. A little. He took a tube of ointment from the drawer and placed it in front of me. I looked down at the ointment, then back at him. "Why is this in your study?" He said, "You scraped the back of your hand the day before yesterday when you threw the dog ball." I was stunned. That faint red mark from 2 days ago, I'd already forgotten about it myself. Qi Fengchuan remembered. The system let out a ding. Task completed. Its voice sounded a bit strained. I picked up the ointment, twisted off the cap. The scent was faint, and it felt a bit cool as I spread it on my palm. Qi Fengchuan reached out his hand. "Let me do it." I was about to say no, but he had already taken the ointment. His fingertip pressed against my palm, the pressure very light, as he spread the ointment in slow, circular motions. The study was very quiet. After the phone call ended, only the faint sound of rain tapping on leaves outside the window remained, along with my increasingly erratic breathing. I wanted to pull my hand away, but that felt too deliberate. I wanted to make a joke, but my tongue felt as if it were stuck with ointment. Qi Fengchuan lowered his head, his eyelashes casting a small shadow beneath his eyes. He asked, "Don't you get tired acting like this every day?" I stared at his hands. "Not really. Practice makes perfect." Why act? My heart skipped a beat. The system also fell silent. I couldn't mention the system. I could only curl the corners of my mouth, because life needs a sense of ritual. Qi Fengchuan looked up at me, afraid he would press further. I quickly added, and the audience is very important. He looked at me for a moment and said, then I'll take a good look from now on. My fingers curled slightly in his palm. He stopped. I immediately pulled my hand back, grabbed the ointment, and walked toward the door. All right, eavesdropping's over for today. I'm going back to sleep. As I reached the door, Shi Fengchuan suddenly called out to me, Zhaoye. I turned around. He stood under the light, his gaze deeply subdued. If one day you're not acting, you can still call me. My hand gripped the door handle, my knuckles tightening. After a moment, I grinned and said, then you'll have to get in line. There are too many people I can call at home. Shi Fengchuan was not disappointed. He simply nodded. All cue. The system was driven mad by Qi Fengchuan. It began issuing increasingly tricky tasks, trying to push me toward tragedy. Task content. At the birthday banquet, no one remembers the real young master's birthday. The fake young master shines brilliantly, while the real young master swallows a bitter cake. Task requirement. Eat a piece of bitter food at the birthday banquet and say, I don't deserve to be loved. Reward. 70 revenge points. After reading the task, I was silent for a long time. Today is indeed my birthday. The Qin family's old mansion had been bustling since morning. A florist brought in a truckload of flowers. A pastry chef was testing cakes in the kitchen. Uncle Zhou led people to hang string lights. And even Dafu had a small bow tied around its neck. The system can interpret this scene as no one remembering it. I call it the granddaddy of turning a blind eye. At 7 in the evening, the banquet began. Everyone who came was familiar. My grandparents sat on the sofa waiting for me. Qin Ji put a crown on my head. Qin Yinchuan gave me a full set of limited edition gaming gear. My dad handed me a company equity document. And my mom personally knitted a scarf for me. The scarf wasn't really suitable for summer, but I still wrapped it around me on the spot. The system kept spamming the screen. The host needs to be forgotten. Do I look like I've been forgotten? The plot can be corrected. You should fix your eyes first. Shi Fengchuan arrived last. He was wearing a dark suit and holding a small box in his hand. Qin Ji immediately started teasing. What did Fengchuan give? I also looked at him. He handed the box to me. I opened it. Inside is a fruit candy. Transparent wrapper. Orange flavor. I froze. 7 years ago, on the day he left home, he gave me the same thing. Words jumped in front of my eyes. The fake young master humiliated the host with cheap gifts. Something caught in my throat. Cheap? My ass. I looked up at Qi Fengchuan. He stood in the crowd, amid the shadows of the lights. His voice very low. That year, you didn't eat it. And the candy melted. I clutched the candy wrapper, my fingertips tracing the tiny creases. He knows. He actually knows. I later put that candy in the nightstand drawer. It melted into a sticky mess in the summer, but I couldn't bear to throw it away. In the end, my mom found it and sealed it in a glass jar for me. Qi Fengchuan looked at me. You can eat it this time. I lowered my head, unwrapped the candy, and put it in my mouth. The orange flavor spread, the sweet and sour taste pressing against the tip of my tongue. The system frantically sent alerts. Task requirement. Bitter food. I looked at the dessert table. Bitter food is easy to handle. I walked over, picked up a piece of dark chocolate, and took a bite. The bitterness almost made my facial features go their separate ways. Everyone was looking at me. I held the chocolate in my mouth, the sugar, as the bitterness brought tears to my eyes. I raised my hand and spoke with a tragic tone. I don't deserve to be loved. The whole room fell silent. The cake knife in my mother's hand stopped. My father frowned. Qin Ji's smile froze. Qin Yinchuan set down his cup. Even Qi Fengchuan's expression changed, his eyes dimming like a light being switched off. My heart skipped a beat. Oh no, that crossed the line. The next second, my dad strode over and took the dark chocolate from my hand. Who told you to eat something this bitter? I quickly tried to salvage the situation. It's for the plot. My mom reached out and pinched my cheek. forcing me to open my mouth and stuff the strawberry in. Spit that sentence out. With the strawberry in my mouth, I mumbled, "Can't spit it out." Qin Zhaoye rushed over and straightened the crown. "Qin Zhaoye, you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. You deserve 800 cakes." Qin Yinchuan pushed a glass of water over. "Rinse your mouth and say it again." Grandpa stood up with his cane. "Who dares to say my grandson is unworthy?" Grandma slammed the table. "Even if Zhaoye says it himself, it's not allowed." I was surrounded in the middle, the strawberry juice in my mouth mixing with the bitter taste of chocolate, and suddenly my nose felt a bit sour. I was just acting from the start, but their reactions were too real. So real that it struck me right in the chest. The system pinged. Task complete. I ignored it. Qi Fengchuan stood outside the crowd, watching me. I wanted to smile and tell him it was nothing. But the moment my lips moved, tears fell from my eyes first. Qin Zhaoye immediately panicked. "Why are you actually crying?" I raised my hand to wipe my face, stubbornly refusing to admit defeat. "Bitter. The dark chocolate is too bitter." Qi Fengchuan walked over, peeled open another orange candy, and held it to my lips. To offset the bitterness, I looked at his hand, parted my lips, and took the candy into my mouth. His fingertips brushed the corner of my lips, a touch that came and went in an instant. There were so many people around. The lights were so bright, the cake was sweet, and the scent of flowers filled my nose. Yet all I could hear was the chaotic pounding in my own chest. Qi Fengchuan asked in a low voice, "Still bitter?" I sucked on the candy and shook my head. "It's no longer bitter." After the birthday banquet, the system fell silent for a day. I thought it had been completely crushed by the blow of familial affection. But the next morning, it hit me with something big. Ultimate rehearsal mission activated. Mission objective. The real young master discovers that the fake young master will always be the Qin family's choice. Decides to run away from home and makes his family taste the feeling of loss. Task requirement. Leave the Qin family's old residence for 1 hour. And do not explain your whereabouts to family members. Reward. 100 revenge points. Penalty for failure. 100 seconds of electric shock. I sat on the bed, my hair a tangled mess. Not allowed to disclose whereabouts. Yes, my family will call the police. Tragedy requires loss of control. Lost your uncle. I can't really let my family worry. But the system requires me not to disclose my whereabouts. I thought for 5 minutes and sent a message to Qin Yinchuan. "Bro, if I suddenly disappear today, don't panic." Qin Yinchuan replied instantly. "A mission?" I replied. "Art." He said, "Keep your location on." I said, "I can't disclose my whereabouts." He said, "You don't need to explain. I'll check." Good. The loophole is valid. I changed my clothes and slipped out through the back door. Just as I reached the courtyard wall, Qi Fengchuan's voice came from behind. "Where are you going?" My foot slipped, and I nearly fell into the flower bed. Qi Fengchuan was wearing sportswear, having just returned from a morning run, with a bit of sweat on his forehead and heavier breathing than usual. He looked at the small bag in my hand. I hid the bag behind my back, running away from home. He took a step closer. "Do you have your ID card with you?" I was caught off guard. "Huh? Phone battery? 80%. Cash? Who carries cash these days?" Qi Fengchuan frowned. "Unqualified." I muttered under my breath. "You're stricter than the system." He didn't catch it. "What?" I quickly waved my hand. "I mean, fate is harsh." Qi Fengchuan looked at me for a moment. "I'll see you off." I was shocked. "Someone sees you off when you run away from home." He said, "If you walk out, the surveillance room will notify Uncle Zhou within 3 minutes. Uncle Zhou will notify your parents within 5 minutes. And your parents will catch you back within 10 minutes. I fell silent. He was right. Qi Fengchuan grabbed the car keys. By the time I sat in the passenger seat, the system had already started glitching. The fake young master should not assist the host in running away from home. He is enthusiastic. This is disrupting the plot. This is improving efficiency. The car drove out of the Qin family's old estate, with tree shadows receding on both sides of the mountain road. Morning sunlight fell through the gaps in the leaves, landing on the back of his hand. I rolled down the car window, and the wind rushed in, dispelling my drowsiness. Qi Fengchuan asked, "Where to?" I said, "Can't say." He said, "Then I'll just drive wherever." He drove the car to the entrance of a breakfast shop in the city center. It wasn't a fancy restaurant, just an old street-side shop, with steam rising from the entrance, white mist billowing from the steamers, and youtiao sizzling in oil. I caught the scent of soy milk, and my stomach immediately let out a growl. Qi Fengchuan looked at me. I covered my stomach and said, "This is the mournful cry of a runaway." He parked the car and took me inside. We sat in a corner. The table was a bit worn, with chopsticks sticking out of a glass cup. The landlady had a loud, clear voice. Qi Fengchuan ordered soy milk, fried dough sticks, and xiaolong bao for me, and added a bowl of wontons. I ate without lifting my head. The system countdown had 45 minutes left. Biting into the fried dough stick, I suddenly found it absurd. Other people's runaway experiences are cold winds and rain, with nowhere to go. My runaway experience is being driven by a CEO, eating breakfast until I'm stuffed, with my phone's location tracking on. My brother has probably already sent the route map to the whole family. Sure enough, Xinji's message popped up. "How's the runaway experience?" I replied, "The fried dough sticks are good." She replied, "Bring two." I had just let out a laugh when Qi Fengchuan pushed a dish of vinegar over. "What are you laughing at?" I showed him my phone. After reading it, he also curled his lips slightly. The landlady brought over the wontons and glanced at us. "You two brothers have such a good relationship." I choked on my soy milk. Qi Fengchuan handed me a tissue. The landlady added, "But you two don't look alike." "You coughed even harder." Qi Fengchuan patted my back, his movements steady, his palm landing through the fabric of my clothes, one after another, pressing my breath into chaos. He said to the landlady, "We're not blood brothers." The landlady let out an "oh" and walked away with a smile. I looked up at him. "Why are you explaining so fast?" Qi Fengchuan picked up his chopsticks, placed a xiaolong bao in my bowl. "Afraid you'd choke." The system countdown ended. Task complete. My phone rang at the same time. It was my mom. I answered, and before I could say anything, she spoke first. "Is the runaway over? There's ginger tea in the pot. Come back and have some." I wrinkled my nose. "Mom, it's summer." She said, "You caught a draft this morning." My dad's voice came through the phone. "Tell Qi Fengchuan to drive slower." I looked at Qi Fengchuan. He heard it too. I said into the phone, "Got it." After hanging up, the car was silent for a few seconds. Qi Fengchuan suddenly said, "Zhaoye, you know, there are many people waiting for you to come back." I gripped the soy milk cup. The tips of my fingers stung by the heat. "I see." He said, "That's good." I lowered my head to drink the soy milk, the sweetness cloying in my mouth. The system began to question its existence. It couldn't understand why every tragic mission ended up turning into a Qin family reunion. So it turned its sights on outsiders. Mission objective. At the banquet, an outsider insults the true young master for his lowly birth, while the family chooses to remain silent to protect the fake young master. Task requirement. Be publicly humiliated and wait 30 seconds for your family's reaction. Reward. 120 revenge points. Failure penalty. 120 seconds of electric shock. I stared at the words humiliation by outsiders, my brows slowly furrowing. This time, it doesn't seem like something that can be easily brushed off. That evening, the Qin family attended a commercial charity banquet. I didn't really want to go, but the system quest was stuck there. Inside the banquet hall, the crystal chandeliers were blindingly bright. The champagne tower reflected tiny specks of light. The scent of perfume and alcohol mingled together. and layers of laughter rose one after another. Qi Fengchuan entered the door with me. He was wearing a black suit today, a hint of silver glinting from his tie clip, his cold profile making no one dare to approach casually. I whispered, "Don't follow too closely, or outsiders won't have a chance to humiliate me." Qi Fengchuan stopped in his tracks. "You seem pretty excited." I sighed. "Just a working stiff." He stared at me. "Who pays your salary?" I blinked. Fate. He wanted to ask more, but someone called him from a distance. Several partners gathered around. I took the chance to slip over to the dessert table and grabbed a small cake. Just as I took a bite, a harsh voice came from beside me. "Isn't this the true young master of the Qin family?" I turned my head. The speaker was Zhao Qing, the youngest son of the Zhao family, notorious in the circle for his sharp tongue. Relying on his family's wealth, he would step on anyone he could. He held a wine glass, looking me up and down with a smile that made you want to shove a cake in his face. "I heard you grew up in an orphanage. No wonder the Qin family spent so many years teaching you. Yet you still have that unsophisticated air about you." The system instantly became excited. Humiliation achieved. Waiting for family silence, I gripped the cake fork tightly, my fingertips tensing. I can play the victim, but that doesn't mean I like it when someone actually brings up the orphanage. That place had its hardships, but also its good moments. The headmistress once sewed my school bag, and a kid once shared half a biscuit with me. I won't let Zhao Qing trample on it like it's something dirty. Just as I was about to speak, Zhao Qing turned his gaze toward Qi Fengchuan, who was not far away. Brother Fengchuan is still more like a member of the Qin family. Even if he's not a blood relative, he's more decent than some who are. A few people around laughed. My anger flared up instantly. The system countdown began. 30 seconds. It wants me to wait for my family's reaction. But I don't want to wait. Just as I was about to shove the cake fork into Zhao Qing's mouth, my wrist was grabbed. Qi Fengchuan had somehow appeared beside me. He didn't look at Zhao Qing. Instead, he first glanced down at the fork in my hand. "Don't use this." I froze. He took the fork from my hand and placed it back on the plate. "It won't taste good if it's dirty." Zhao Qing's face stiffened. Only then did Qi Fengchuan look up. The banquet hall was still noisy, but the moment he spoke, it was as if the volume around him had been turned down. Zhao Qing apologized to him. Zhao Qing let out a dry laugh. "Fengchuan, I was just joking." "Apologize." Zhao Qing's smile faltered. "You're turning against me for him, the Zhao family, and your project." Qi Fengchuan interrupted him. "The termination letter will arrive tomorrow morning." Zhao Qing's face changed color. The system countdown had 12 seconds left. My parents and my older brother and sister also arrived. Qin Banyan's face was terrifyingly dark. At home, my dad peels shrimp for me, but outside, he is the head of the Qin family who can silence an entire table. He looked at Zhao Qing. "The Zhao family can't teach their son, so I will." My mother held my hand, her fingertips brushing across my palm to make sure I wasn't hurt. Qin Ji directly placed the wine glass on the table. "Zhao Qing, with a mouth that foul. Charity galas don't accept trash. Who let you in?" Qin Yinchuan took out his phone and made a call on the spot. "Terminate all unsigned contracts with the Zhao family, and check the breach clauses for those already signed." Zhao Qing was completely panicked. "Uncle Qin, Aunt One, I was just joking." "Zhao, you didn't say anything either." I put down the cake plate and walked over to him. The system chimed. "Task complete." I ignored it. I looked at Zhao Qing and said, word by word, "The orphanage is not a place for you to humiliate me." There, I was taught to say thank you, not to waste food, and that if a dog bites me, I shouldn't bite back, but I can go find an adult. Zhao Qing's face turned pale. I continued, "You can curse me today. Fine, but curse that place." "No." Qi Fengchuan stood behind me, his voice very low. "It's not like I can't." I turned to look at him. He stared at Zhao Qing, his gaze piercingly cold. "Not even allowed to scold you." My throat tightened. Zhao Qing finally bent over to apologize, his voice trembling so much it was barely audible. The Qin family did not accept it. Before the banquet had even ended, news spread that the Zhao family's partnership had been revoked overnight. On the way back, I leaned against the car window, watching the streetlights race past outside. The system was unusually quiet. Shi Fengchuan sat beside me and suddenly asked, "Why did you want to do it yourself just now?" I said, "The fork was closer." He frowned. "Call me next time." I turned to look at him. "You hit people." He said, "I don't hit." I was about to laugh when he added, "I'll have someone else do the hitting." I burst out laughing, and the tightness in my chest finally eased. His face was reflected in the car window. He watched me laugh, and the tension in his eyes slowly faded. After the incident with Zhaoqing, the system completely panicked. It finally revealed the first essential suspense. The host has deviated too far from the tragic storyline. Forced correction procedure initiated. Final mission preview. Make the Qin family choose between the real and fake young master. I stared at that line of text, my back slowly tensing up. "What do you want to do?" The system did not respond. 3 days later, at the Qin family's new project launch, Shi Fengchuan and the Qin family attended together. I was originally only responsible for sitting in the audience and applauding. But just before the launch began, the system suddenly popped up a task. Final mission initiated. Mission objective. The real young master is framed by the fake young master, publicly accused of leaking trade secrets. The family must choose whom to believe in the face of evidence. Mission requirement. The host must step onto the podium, confess to stealing the documents, and await abandonment by the family. Reward. Unbinding. Failure penalty. Forced electric shock for 3 minutes. My eyes turned cold. This mission crossed the line. Admitting to stealing the documents wasn't part of the act. It was throwing dirt on the Qin family's project and would also implicate Shi Fengchuan. "I won't do it." The system's voice was sharp. The host has no right to refuse. An electric current suddenly pierced the back of the neck. My vision went black. My fingers gripped the back of the chair, and cold sweat instantly crept up my back. Pain? Not the kind of threat from before. This was a real electric shock. Shi Fengchuan stood at the side of the stage, as if sensing something, and suddenly turned to look at me. I gritted my teeth and pushed myself up using the armrest. The system couldn't control my body, so it could only force me to move with pain. The hall was filled with a noise of voices. Media cameras aimed at the stage, and the lights were blindingly white. I walked toward the stage, step by step. Shi Fengchuan came over and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong?" I looked up at him, my throat filled with the taste of rust. I can't mention the system. I can't let him know. I twitched the corner of my mouth, adding drama. Shi Fengchuan's expression changed. He grabbed my wrist. "It's different this time." The electric current stabbed down again, and my knees nearly gave way. Shi Fengchuan caught me firmly. His arm locked around my waist. The pressure tightened. The reporters in the audience began to stir. I heard someone ask, "What happened to young Master Qin?" The system screen was scrolling frantically. "Admit the charges. Say you stole the documents. Let them choose." I looked up and saw my parents stand up from the front row. Qin Ji pushed her chair aside, and Qin Yinchuan had already rushed to the side of the stage. Everyone was coming for me. No one hesitated. Yet the system was still roaring before my eyes. "They will abandon you." My fingertips trembled with pain, and suddenly I smiled. "You've been wrong so many times. Why haven't you learned your lesson?" I snatched the microphone from the stage. The stage lights shone on my face, stinging my eyes until they felt sore. Shi Fengchuan supported me, whispering, "Zhaoye." I said in a voice only he could hear, "Trust me." He stared at me, his fingers tightening, then slowly loosening. I spoke to the media below the stage. "Sorry, we're adding a last-minute family segment today." The audience erupted in murmurs. The system froze. I continued. "Lately, I've been obsessed with tragic performances of wealthy families. causing trouble for everyone. My father had already walked to the edge of the stage, looking at me with suppressed anger in his eyes. I know he wasn't targeting me. My mom was clutching at tissue. Qin Zhi's eyes were red, and Qin Yinchuan's face was as cold as if he was about to tear down the press hall. I took a deep breath. No, Mr. Qin. If someone said I stole Qin Corporation's documents, would you believe it? My father took the other microphone, his voice steady and controlled. I don't believe it. I looked at my mother. Ms. Wen, do you believe it? My mother stared straight at me. My son wouldn't do that. I looked at Qin Zhi. She grabbed the microphone from the staff member. Who said that? Step forward, and I'll tear them apart. Some people in the audience laughed, but more fell silent. I looked at Qin Yinchuan. Qin Yinchuan said, Qin Zhaoye can't even remember his own cloud drive password. Stealing files is too high-tech for him. I almost broke character. Finally, I looked at Qi Fengchuan. He stood beside me and took the microphone. The stage lights fell on his brows and eyes. He didn't look at the media, only at me. I believe him. Just 3 short words crashed the system, filling the screen with garbled code. Plot collapse. Selection failed. The tragic line cannot be established. The electric current is about to fall again. I spoke first, raising my voice. Did you see it? Everyone thought I was talking to the air. My palms were drenched in sweat from the pain, yet I laughed even harder. You told me to wait for them to abandon me, but they all came. The system screamed. The host violated rules by revealing the system's existence. Did I reveal it? Did I mention your name? I bowed deeply to the audience. Sorry, the family segment is over. Let's continue with the press conference. Then everything went black. Before I fell, Qi Fengchuan caught me. I heard his voice fall apart for the first time. Qin Zhaoye. When I woke up, the smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. The ceiling was so white it was blinding. As I moved, the 4 needle on the back of my hand tugged slightly. The sound of a chair scraping against the floor immediately echoed by the bedside. Qi Fengchuan stood up, his eyes bloodshot, a hint of stubble emerging on his chin, looking as if he hadn't slept all night. I opened my mouth. I'm not dead, am I? He looked at me, staying silent for a long time. I had no choice but to keep rambling. If I die, the hospital room decor is a bit too shabby, doesn't meet the Qin family standards. Qi Fengchuan closed his eyes. The next second, he leaned down and hugged me. He held me tightly, his arms squeezing my shoulders until they ached. I froze. The hospital room was very quiet, the monitor beeping softly. And outside the window, someone pushed a car past, its wheels rolling across the floor. His breath fell on my ear, heavy and trembling. Don't scare me like that. My throat tightened. I'm fine. He loosened his grip slightly and looked at me. You couldn't stand steady on stage from the pain. I blinked. Low blood sugar. Qi Fengchuan's gaze darkened. Qin Zhaoye. I immediately backed down. The hospital door swung open, and my parents, along with my older brother and sister, rushed in. My mother's eyes were swollen. She sat down by the bed, touched my forehead, then reached for my hand. Does it still hurt? I said. It doesn't hurt. Qin Zhi slapped her phone in front of me. The doctor said it's just temporary nerve stimulation and fatigue. Don't try to fake amnesia to avoid being lectured. Qin Yinchuan stood at the foot of the bed, holding a stack of documents in his hand. The surveillance footage from the press conference has been checked. No external devices. No poisoning. No human attack. My heart skipped a beat. The system fell silent. Since I passed out, it hasn't appeared again. Qin Yinchuan looked at me. So what exactly is going on with you? The whole family was looking at me. Qi Fengchuan was also looking at me. I can't tell the truth. Maybe they would believe me if I said it. But the system is too absurd. I don't want to drag them into a danger they can't explain. I lowered my eyes, staring at the tape on the back of my hand. I've been under a lot of pressure lately. The ward fell silent for a moment. Qin Ji opened her mouth as if to say something, but after a glance from Qin Yinchuan, she closed it again. I continued. So, always acting out those messy things. Maybe I overdid it. Even I felt the need to patch up that flimsy excuse. But my mom didn't call me out. She just held my hand. Then stopped pretending. I looked up. My dad said, "You can act if you want, but you can't hurt yourself." Qin Ji said, "You also can't say you're not worthy of being loved." Qin Yinchuan said, "You can't leave home without permission for more than an hour, even though you had a tracker this time." My nose stung, so I quickly smiled. "Your contract terms are quite detailed." Shi Fengchuan remained silent the whole time. Only after his family went out to find a doctor did he stand by the bedside. I dare not look at him. He asked, "Are you still hiding things from me?" I picked at the corner of the blanket with my fingers. "No." Zhaoye, his voice lowered. "You don't have to speak. But don't lie to me." Those words struck me right in the chest. I looked up at him. There was no coercion in his eyes, only the exhaustion of not sleeping well and a hint of lingering fear he couldn't suppress. I suddenly remembered 7 years ago. The day he left home, he looked at me the same way. He said, "This is your home. Don't be afraid." Now he's standing by my bed again, waiting for me to let go of a little bit of my fear. I opened my mouth. If I told you there's something in my head that forces me down a tragic path every day, would you believe me? Shi Fengchuan didn't answer right away. He pulled over a chair and sat down, meeting my eyes. I would. I was stunned. "So soon?" He said, "All your recent actions have been governed by forced rules. You've been looking for loopholes, as if you're dealing with an invisible contract." I was stunned. He continued, "Jumping from the first floor, lipstick wounds, plastic dog bowls, standing in the corner, notification-style eavesdropping, GPS-enabled running away from home. None of it is random madness." I opened my mouth, but it took me a long time to force out a single sentence. "It's a shame you're not a detective." Shi Fengchuan looked at me. "Is it still there?" I looked ahead. Empty. "Not here for now." He reached out, palm facing up, and placed it by the edge of the blanket. I looked at that hand and slowly placed mine on top of it. He held it. The grip wasn't firm, but he didn't let go. "If it comes again, tell me," I whispered, "but you can't see." He said, "I can see you." My fingertips curled slightly. Sunlight fell by the hospital bed outside the window, making the white sheets glow. I suddenly don't feel like joking anymore. I just want to be quiet for a while. The system came back online 3 days later. By then, I had already returned home and was sitting on the living room sofa, eating an apple. Shi Fengchuan sat nearby reviewing documents. My parents were drinking tea in the garden. Qin Ji was taking photos of Dafu, and Qin Yinchuan was in the kitchen discussing the dinner menu with the chef, because he's recently been obsessed with nutritional balance, trying to turn me into an iron fortress. A line of text suddenly flashed before my eyes. Final correction failed. Reevaluating the reason for the binding error. I paused mid-bite into the apple. Shi Fengchuan immediately looked up. "You're here?" I nodded. The system paused for a moment. "Third parties cannot perceive this system." Shi Fengchuan closed the file. "What does it say?" I repeated. "It says you can't perceive it." Shi Fengchuan said coldly, "I can't sense it, but I can listen to your retelling." System. Oh. I almost burst out laughing. The system continued spamming the screen. Verification result. The host is confirmed to be the true young master of the Qin family, meeting the identity conditions. Family relationship anomaly. Happiness concentration too high. Tragedy line unable to load. Mismatch reason. The system failed to detect the years of return during deployment, mistakenly identifying the family recognition event from 7 years ago as the current node. I put down the apple. "So you've kidnapped the wrong person." The system fell silent. "Please confirm unbinding." Host. My eyes lit up. Confirmed. Unbinding requires completing a wrap-up task. My face darkened. Why is there still a final payment? Wrap-up task. The host must create a scene where the whole family regrets their actions. Completing the system's core indicator loop. Task requirement. Make at least 3 family members say they regret it. Reward. Unbinding. I stared at that line of text for 3 seconds, then suddenly laughed. I know this one. I stood up. Qi Fengchuan asked, "A new mission?" I nodded. Make the whole family regret it. He frowned. I patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. This time it's all about harmless fun. At dinner, I solemnly announced that I would personally cook a dish for the whole family. The dining room fell silent. My dad dropped his chopsticks. My mother's ladle froze in midair. Qin Zhi looked up from behind her phone, her eyes filled with horror. Qin Yinchuan stood up directly. I don't agree. I clutched my chest. What kind of reaction is this? I just wanted to contribute to this family. Qin Zhi said, last time you fried an egg, the pan turned black. The egg wasn't cooked. And the kitchen alarm went off. Qin Yinchuan said, the time before that, you cooked noodles and used sugar instead of salt. My dad added, and the time before that, you made juice without putting the lid on. My mother closed her eyes. There's still a little strawberry stain on the ceiling. The system issued a prompt. Please make the host feel regret. I walked into the kitchen. The chef team stood in a row, their expressions more solemn than at a shareholders' meeting. Uncle Zhou handed me the apron, his voice faltering. Young master, how about I do the chopping, and you handle the scallion sprinkling? I refused. Today, I will complete it on my own. Qi Fengchuan leaned against the kitchen doorframe, watching me with a hint of a smile in his eyes. I glared at him. Don't you dare laugh. He said, I'll keep an eye on the stove for you. I thought it over and allowed it. I went with the simplest dish, scrambled eggs with tomatoes. 10 minutes later, the kitchen looked like it had survived a small battle. A bit of egg mixture spilled. 2 tomatoes rolled onto the floor. I held the spatula backward once and nearly added 3 spoonfuls of salt before Qi Fengchuan stopped me just in time. In the end, the finished dish was brought to the table. Looks decent. At least you can tell it's food. I placed the plate in the center of the dining table, full of anticipation. Please, taste it. The whole family stared at the plate of tomato scrambled eggs, no one reaching for it first. The system countdown began. My mom was the first to pick up a bite with her chopsticks. She chewed, her expression frozen. I nervously asked, how is it? She swallowed hard and patted my head. Mom regrets it. The system flickered once. 1 bite. My dad took a bite. He finished it without changing his expression, then picked up his glass and drank half a cup of water. Dad regrets it too. 2. Qin Zhi took a tiny bite and immediately covered her mouth. I regret it. I really regret it. I regret not stopping you with all my might just now. 3. The system emitted a harsh completion alert. Core metrics closed loop. Unbinding process initiated. Before I could even feel happy, Qin Yinchuan also took a taste and calmly commented, not enough salt. Too much sugar. The tomato skins weren't removed, and the eggs are overcooked. I regret not signing you up for a cooking class before. I looked at Qi Fengchuan. Don't you have any regrets too? Qi Fengchuan picked up a piece of egg and put it in his mouth. The whole table stared at him. He swallowed slowly. No regrets. I was stunned. He looked at me, his voice steady. I'll practice with you next time. My heart began to pound uncontrollably again. The system's handwriting gradually faded away. Unbinding complete. Wishing the host. It paused, as if unable to find a tragic blessing suitable for me. Finally, it forced out a sentence. Wishing the host to continue deviating. The blood-red text completely vanished. Before my eyes, it was perfectly clean. I stared at the air for a long time. Qi Fengchuan asked, Gone? I nodded. Gone. The restaurant fell silent for a second. Qin Zhi suddenly raised her glass to celebrate Zhaoye no longer losing his mind. I protested. I wasn't losing it in the first place. Qin Zhaoye said. Then let's celebrate Zhaoye returning to his usual level of madness. My dad laughed and told Uncle Zhou to open the wine. My mom pushed the plate of tomato scrambled eggs aside and placed the fish I love in front of me. From now on, you can cook if you want, but someone has to be with you in the kitchen. I said, got it. Shi Fengchuan sat beside me and put the peeled shrimp into my bowl. I looked at the shrimp and suddenly remembered the first day I was bound to the system. It said I would be ignored, abandoned, and would trade my wounds for regret. But from beginning to end, what I received was a bowl of hot soup, a towel, an umbrella, a piece of candy, and a group of people always ready to catch me. I picked up the shrimp and stuffed it into my mouth. Shi Fengchuan asked in a low voice, "Is it good?" I nodded. "It's good." He looked at me, a smile in his eyes. "Will you still perform in the future?" I thought for a moment, raised my hand to cover my chest, and lowered my voice. "Shi Fengchuan, you took away my shrimp. I hate you." He glanced at the shrimp I had peeled myself in my bowl. "Then I'll compensate you for a lifetime." The chopsticks in my hand nearly slipped. Qin Ji on the other side suddenly coughed. Qin Yinchuan lifted his eyes. My dad squinted his eyes. My mom looked at Shi Fengchuan, then at me, and suddenly smiled. My ears burned, but I still put up a tough front. "Who wants you to pay me back for a lifetime? I'm very expensive." Shi Fengchuan peeled another shrimp and placed it in my bowl. "I can afford to pay for it." The garden lights were on outside the window, and Daifuku was dozing by the door. At the dining table, someone laughed, someone coughed, someone pretended not to hear, and someone had already picked up their phone to record the moment. I lowered my head to eat the shrimp, unable to suppress the smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. This time, there was no system prompt indicating the task was complete. But I know that this path of mine, deviating from tragedy, will continue onward. Hey, could you rate this story in the comments? Use a scale of 10, please. If you like this kind of content, hit that follow button